Rob's Child here with Chapter 14 of Security Analysis. Nothing I say is an investment advice, and I'm not looking to replace the contents of this book, but open up what's in the book for discussion. So, Chapter 14 is the theory of preferred stocks. This is a fun read. I enjoyed reading this chapter because of how much he hates preferred stocks. I want to bring up first and foremost for this chapter to make sure we do a quick review. What are preferred stocks? If you don't know, a preferred stock is kind of like a bond, but they don't have to pay you. And so that they has a coupon rate usually, like let's say it's 6%. They can choose to pay it out if they have enough money, and they don't have to pay it out. Now, of course, if they want to distribute money to the common stockholders, they do. That's the one case they do have to pay the preferred shareholders. And then some preferred shares of certain companies have other rules involved, and that's not what we're talking about so much here. So, they usually have sort of a par value. This is very basic investing. It's usually like $100, and then you have a potential to get payments of 6%. So let's just go through the chapter, and then I'll discuss other things about it. So the first main point, after he basically says they're just awful, is, okay, you have, to make it worse, like I just said, the bonds are compulsory. A company, when they have a bond, it's a bond. They have to pay it out. For a preferred share, they don't have to pay it out. They can pay it out as they please. So similar to the discussion of, an earlier chapter where he discussed how junior bonds have just as much risk as the senior bonds of the same company. And so why not just buy the junior bonds? If the company goes bankrupt, they go bankrupt. So you could maybe say the same argument for preferred shares, like, why buy a bond if you can get maybe a preferred share that maybe has a higher coupon, but, he goes on to say that, it's not a bond. It's not a dependable return, so it doesn't have that status. So I'll go through a list of detractors that I extracted out there. So because it's not a dependable return, we shouldn't even consider it to be a fixed value investment. It looks like it could be a fixed value investment. It has a fixed coupon rate, right? It has your 6%. You're getting that 6% all the time, but it's not a dependable. They don't have to pay you. So how can that be fixed value? How can that be a fixed income investment? It just simply isn't. And because of the fact that this can change, even a company that's been paying out a dividend for their preferred shareholders over a long period of time, the price can be volatile, and so that's another detractor. And then he brings up a very good point that I think is worth understanding, that the choice for suspending a payment for the future of the company, it oftentimes, that happening is oftentimes directly benefiting the common stockholder. And the funny thing is that the common stockholder has a vote to say who runs the company, right? And so, with the preferred shares don't have vote. If you didn't know that, preferred shares, if you own preferred shares of a company, even though you get the first crumbs that fall off the table kind of a thing, you don't have any say how the company is run. So the board serves, in essence, the common shareholder. It benefits everyone that's not a preferred shareholder to basically just ignore the preferred shareholders. There's nothing holding this up. And then on top of it, on top of that, you can oftentimes have directors of companies that are personal interests that go against the common stockholder themselves, and that can even make it worse because that puts the preferred shareholders even further below that, and that can be very problematic. And so along with all of this, obviously preferred shares are seen by Graham as the least safe type of investment, the form, he calls it an investment form, that you could possibly have. And so along with that, if you were ever to buy a preferred share of a company, it needs to be even more stable. It needs to have more stability and more safety than what would be required of a bondholder. And that's because, again, it's by choice to pay out dividends to the preferred shareholders. So that margin of earnings, the margin of potential dividends needs to be even higher. And then also the stability of earnings over time. As business fluctuates and goes up and down, it needs to not go up and down very much. These are all things that could potentially make a preferred share possible to invest in from his standpoint. And so because of these even more stringent rules regarding what would make a decent purchase in preferred shares, we get to the conclusion that there are not very many of them out there. Another disadvantage is that, he compares it to the bonds and how the company issuing these preferred shares don't really benefit because they have to pay taxes on the dividends that go out to preferred shareholders versus a bond. So if they can handle paying out the preferred share coupon, they might as well just have it be a bond, is his point, because you don't have to pay taxes on the interest payments, but they do on the preferred dividend statement. So they don't even get a benefit from that, because then the holders of the security, it's just not worth as much, again, as the bond. And so all in all, the whole chapter is really just goes into detail about all these different ways that that preferred shares truly, all in all, benefit absolutely no one. They don't benefit the company for selling them. They don't benefit people for holding them. He goes into a little bit of a history of why they exist and why they became popular, actually. And it was sort of he calls it for erroneous reasons, that they were basically tricked. And it's just not a good idea. If you want to speculate that the company is going to do really well in the future, buy the stock. If you see safety and you want a fixed income, buy the bond. Don't bother with the preferred shares. I'm going to finish with a quote from the end of the chapter that I really like. This whole chapter is a very funny read, because you can almost hear the anger in his voice about how mad he is that these things even exist, it seems. But, and I quote from the end of the chapter, page 195, it's the case where basically, quote, heads, the common stockholder wins, tails, the preferred stockholder loses. And with that's the end of the chapter on preferred stocks. It looks like the next chapter talks about preferred stocks some more, and so we will discuss that next time for chapter 15. I hope you enjoyed this episode. Please discuss any of the material in the chapter or anything that I've said in the comment section below. Thank you for watching. See you next time. Robert's Child.